Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Chronicle podcast. I'm your guys' host, Dakota Morgan, coming to you from Phoenix, Arizona. Today is not an episode where Gavin is joining me. Today is actually just a interview episode, believe it or not. So we have on today some really fun people. Some of the workers and the writers on Planet Divock 91. In case that didn't sound familiar, it's all about actually the COVID pandemic and the storylines and of people's lives and all sorts of crazy shit that's going on in the world with it. So today we have on, coming all the way from the UK, Hannah Berry and Sarah Kenny. We talk all sorts of things with the book, coming to webtoons, turning into comics, as well as going in and talking about science as well, and maybe using comic books to show off science and actually talk about science a little bit more. And we'll get into it. I don't want to butcher it. So welcome, folks, again. And of course, if you like what you listen to, stay tuned for new episodes every Friday on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, wherever you guys are listening to the podcast. Catch us on there. And yeah, for either interviews, aka just conversations with people from comics, or as well little news segments called the Newsroom, the new thing that's been just recently started, and we're trying to get a hold of and do some fun things for. So stay tuned for that. And of course, folks, yeah, I'm on Twitch, DakotaRex97, Twitter DakotaMorgan3, and Instagram at Dakota_Morgan97. And without further ado, though, let's get into our talk. Yeah, Jellybean. I mean, I haven't eaten them in a while, but yeah, I tend to change that for a little bit. But I should say, Hannah and Sarah, it is an honor to have you here. I started kind of the same way with every episode, though. It is an honor to have you here, by the way, because you guys are actually very ambitious people in the comic book world right now.
Really? Are we?
Yeah, I don't know. To me, it is. I mean, when with your guys' book, I mean, go ahead and talk about it real quickly here, so people may recognize it or where they can go find it.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, it all started, looking back, it's like 2020.
20 years ago.
It feels it. Oh, it feels it.
I feel like I've aged 20 years since then, put it that way. But
yeah.
I was kind of sitting actually at UCL chatting to a colleague, Bella Starling, who were working on another project. And we were waiting to hear about the lockdown. And there was all the stuff on the news telling people what to do, where to get information from. And when the lockdown happened, we were thinking about how there's nothing really in terms of sort of hearing from young people and their voices, and it was impacting them so severely. So the initial discussion was, why don't we do some comic strips where we talk to some young people and they kind of tell us, a bit more about what they're thinking and feeling. So it started really small. And then just over time, over sort of a couple of months, we went to various funders and it sort of scaled up to a fully fledged Exquisite Corpse comic. And one of the key things we wanted to do was make it participatory art. So that's sort of running workshops with young people where we bring in scientists, historians, sociologists, media people, have conversations about what they're thinking and feeling. And then we would feed that to the comics creators. Actually, Hannah, you came to one of the sessions, didn't you, with the young people?
I dialed in. Yeah, it was all because everything was remote, and like it still is. But it was the early days of remote dialing into things, and it felt fresh and new and exciting. Yeah, it was. I was going to say it's really. It was such a nice aspect of the project to have all these experts, because I don't know about anybody else, but I feel like I work in comics. I know pretty much everything there is to know, and then it's nice to be shown that actually I don't, and there are people who know more than me. And by the way, you can use this information that other people have and bring it into your work, so you don't have to make a complete tool of yourself.
That's so humbling to hear. You have no idea. In America, we never hear anybody say that anymore, so that's very humbling to hear.
Well, apparently in the UK we're sick of experts, so we've brought that on ourselves.
Yeah.
Look at the state we're in.
Oh, I take that mentality to heart, because you never know truly everything. Because when I'm not doing stuff in comics and media, I work in the animal field and all sorts of different aspects, like a sanctuary, animal ambulance. So trust me, because there's people even in that position who are like, oh, we know everything. Like, you never know everything. There's no way at all.
What's that? It's like a sort of a mental fallacy where you think you know. Oh, what's it called? I think it's you.
It's cockiness. There is that, but
that was it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like a. Oh, do you know what? I'm going to remember it as soon as we finish this call. It's going to come to my mind. There's something where
Yeah.
you think it's like a syndrome where if you're an expert in one area, it gives you the belief that you're an expert in all of the areas,
Yeah.
and
Oh,
we can explain a lot of modern politics with this. Oh, I wish I remember what it was called.
oh, we're gonna remember it when we get
Yeah,
off. You're absolutely right. It's gonna be.
it was a really
You,
good one as well.
yeah, you do come across that a lot actually. Sort of like I really love working with experts, but what I enjoy actually is when you talk to different experts about the same subject, you will get
Yeah.
very different opinions.
Mm.
Like they're looking at the world through different lenses, particularly if you're comparing scientists versus a philosopher versus a
Yep.
historian. And that was one thing we wanted to bring into the space when we were chatting to, the young people, writers, was
Yeah.
what do they bring to their view on this subject when they come from a very different view of thought. And it is interesting because I do think you're right. There are some experts who think they can know everything, but
Yeah, but I mean, so you guys were really, really on top of it. So in the world of chaos at the time, like you guys were all like, "Hey, we can actually do something with this." Well, most of us had no idea what to do because the apocalypse is happening.
That
It
was
was
entirely
really
Sarah, because Sarah's a powerhouse of organisation and planning and strategy.
yeah, and think like absolutely like that's some brain power I wish I would have had back in 2 years ago. Instead, we had like no idea what was going on.
I mean,
But I, hmm?
it's kind of weird saying that because at the time I was having a bit of an epic meltdown personally because I was I work in telly and science engagement, and I'd had contracts falling through, and I was not working on anything specific, and I was like, oh my god. So my background's science engagement, and I did science communication and all that. I was like, I've got to do something, in this. So I guess in a way it was a little bit. I think for a lot of this, it was actually quite cathartic to come together as a community of people and try and do something. And the fact was, it wasn't like a normal project where you plan it, try and get funding, and have sort of ideas about what it's going to be, and then you
Mhm.
get the money and then you do it. It was really like this sort of emerging project that the conversations we had, or funders came on board, spoke to different people. It really changed and more. And I think part of it was trying to figure out how we get the young people involved even more, and bring one of them came in and wrote a chapter, Palisa from South Africa, and so it was I don't know, I don't feel like it was the most structured, well organized project I've ever worked on.
The best things never are though. That's the secret to anything, any art form, is that if the more structured it is, the more it's never going to be too great. But the less structured it is, the more chaotic, more beautiful it is. I don't know what it is about it, but it's always a thing. Whether in comics and in film, like even the best of movies, you're like, oh, it must have been so organized on set, and Spielberg would come out and be, oh no, it was absolute madhouse. It's like you're like, oh okay,
Yeah, it has like an organic feel about it.
yeah, yeah.
An organic chaos.
Yes, yes. Now to people who may not know, Sarah and Hannah, where were you guys before this project in this book though? Where were you guys? What were you up to? Like what's kind of a thing? And maybe to this day, what are you guys up to?
Go on, Sarah, you go first.
I'll go first. Yeah. So I actually was just at the end of a 2-year fellowship, a Wellcome Trust Engagement Fellowship, which is that they're sort of like a medical charity in the UK, and they at the time were kind of funding people to explore ideas around health, and I was exploring stuff around comics, and health, and also sort of broadcast stuff. So I'd spent 2 years basically doing a lot of research in this area, so sort of looking at what happens when you run a workshop rather than just going, hey, come and draw some pictures, sort of what happens. Bring scientists and artists and public into the same space. How do you have a dialogue that feels equitable in a way? Because I think often if you meet medical people, it's in a medical situation where you get 10 minutes of their time and they're telling you really important stuff when it's not an equal situation. So a lot of the workshops I was running was putting surgeons in a room, kind of people from all sorts of different backgrounds, and them just having conversations and seeing what came out of that, and how not just it was about the audience learning stuff, it was about the surgeons and the historians and the scientists learning from the public and how it would change their practice. And we had loads of stuff that came out of it. So I was doing that, and then I was working on a couple of film projects as well. I was doing some work for the film and TV charity. I kind of have my bread and butter work, which pays the bills, which is
Yeah.
TV stuff, and then the comics engagement stuff is
The dessert.
it's kind of like, you know, it's the stuff that you do a lot of in-kind work, shall we say, on it, but it's the stuff that I really enjoy. So yeah, so that's what I was doing at the time. And I was working on another project called One for More, which was exploring community immunity, immunisation, and that we're launching that actually in November at the health conference in South Africa.
Very nice. Very nice.
Another one with an amazing South African artist.
Very cool. So some really crazy out there great work is what I'm hearing.
It's quite intimidating, to be honest.
Yeah, a little bit. Hot damn.
Well, I just make comics.
Hannah, you run a paper. Hannah was did tell them about your graphic medicine project, Hannah.
Well, yeah, actually, which I got through Sarah, funnily enough. I've just been working with a group of medics and academics on this shame in medicine project, and they were trying to find a way to illustrate shame in a sort of in a narrative format, in a way that can be understood by other doctors. I think the whole idea behind the project was to use shame as a way of, you know, as a way of learning as a doctor and going forwards, and not as a way to self-flagellate and then just quit because it's, you know, because you failed as a human being. And I think I got this job because I told them I feel ashamed all the time anyway. So I get it. I understand. I mean, my mistakes might not lead to death, but I do feel a lot of shame. And so yeah, I'd worked on this comic, and it's based on this doctor's account. Oh God, her name has gone from my brain. Okay, I'll stick it. I'll remember that as well. Olivia Davis, Dr. Olivia Davis. It's her story when she was a trainee, and not to brag or anything. It's just been published in the New England Journal of Medicine.
Oh, just you know what? We'll start. I'll be clapping for both of you guys because those are both huge accomplishments.
Thank you.
I think it's brilliant. I think more academics should work with comic artists, comic writers to kind of share their work, and it's one of the things I really you know want to sort of push and encourage more, because I think they're so complicated, these papers, and the jargon, and it's just not necessary, I think. And it is hard to make complex ideas simple. It is really hard, but I think and scientists should be working with artists, writers, because actually most of this work is funded by us, right? Most of us, you know, our taxes pay for you know, a lot of this sort of grant funded work. So I really think that it should be unlocked more in a way that they understand it and use it.
Yeah, and it would be nice if comics was funded.
Yes. Oh boy, that's preaching to a big choir right there. It's a huge. Oh. Well, I mean, it's absolutely true though, and that's why when I had the chance and I was reached out to have you guys on the show, I was like, absolutely, because that's what I love about it, and I love that idea, and you're starting to see more of it. Is artists in comics and science. Paleo art's a big part of it. Like I follow paleontology a lot. I used to work in a fossil lab here in the States, so you know I really enjoy, like, if that's how they're like, oh, the skeleton, but then you put paleo art to it, and it changes everybody's mood on everything. Like, the people look at a skeleton and they have no idea what it means, what's going on. But then when you do the artwork of it, that changes a whole mood, a whole mindset. It gets more people involved. But so when you do that with projects, any science project, no matter biology or psychology, but absolutely right. Like, the more you do with art, the more people it reaches, I think.
Yeah, and I think it's really interesting you say that, particularly about the paleontology stuff, because if you look back historically, like, the sort of the arts and the scientists were less separated, and so you had, like, sort of Darwin, you know, had quite flawed writing style, and other sort of scientists would do beautiful drawings to go with their work. And I think it was sort of around, you know, the early 1900s, you had this sort of desperation of science to try and remove the person even from the science papers. So it wasn't I did this or I observed that or I saw that. The idea is they changed the language to make science feel more objective. And so
I just thought of that.
If you look back at the history of art stuff, it's really interesting. By removing the person, it makes science feel really objective. Of course not. It's still a person observing and doing these things. But before that, scientists would write about I observed this and I saw this. And as soon as you got that sort of separation, you got this sort of evolution of this sort of new complicated language that meant that,
like a distinction. It's almost like quite a barrier between for a lot of people to understand. Obviously not me because I know everything, but it's quite a big barrier to understanding a lot of sciences.
Maybe it's a personal thing. I'm thinking maybe like hearing this, it sounds like a personal thing about it, so people can actually relate to it. Like it's a relation factor of I can relate to it because it's me. Like I like, oh, maybe like I found that, or maybe it's the thing of like, oh, it's just another smart person I can never be. But wait, no, maybe that could actually be me finding something along those lines, or discovering this, or writing about this. I think it's that whole connectivity that sometimes we miss in science, and you're absolutely right, we do need more of that.
Yeah, and I think as soon as you say I did this, it becomes a narrative, and I think that's how we connect with a lot of the world around us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Story form.
That people want to know the science. They don't want the autobiography. They want the science. That's what's going on. Wow.
Little column A, little column B.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. You do want your name on it, though. I get that. 100%. You do want that.
Sure.
Shoot, I've been in the middle of it too right now, and doing a research paper on crocodilians at the moment. So that's been a fun fact. Yeah, we've been because I care for them at a sanctuary. So even here in Arizona, where I'm at in Phoenix, in U.S., we our winters still somewhat get cool and water temperature. So how do you care for them at a wildlife sanctuary where we have about 50 or so crocodilians at this point, of alligators all the way to Niles to Chinese alligators, like Cubans? How do we care for hatchlings all the way to adults in the desert winter? So that's a research paper going on right now, since I'm one of the few people who actually can do that here in the desert. So
do you do it in comic format?
I'm debating whether or not to do that. I don't want to say too much. But...
Oh, okay. No, sorry. I don't want to put you on the spot there.
No, you're good.
But you should.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Trust me, you guys are a big inspiration for that right now.
So how do you overwinter them? Do you have to just let them slow down? They don't hibernate, do they?
Brumation. So like that hibernation-esque sort of thing. They eat only once every 2 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah, and so it's involving a whole lot of heaters. It involves a whole lot of insulation, nursery tubs. It involves water changes.
Can you get those blankets like a blanket with little sleeves? Can you get those?
We kind of actually in a way. Yes, we could. But it like so much of it changes with them, and how you actually can, like as a sanctuary, you're not rolling around in money. So how does one do that when you're on a budget and using a whole lot of heat, like a heat stick? But what do you use to make a PVC pipe heater that's protected, that can go into the water, that they can bite the hell out of and not destroy?
It doesn't electrocute them.
Yes. Oh, that too. Yeah, that's a huge part of it, and making sure checking and what it means at nighttime versus daytime, and the feeding patterns, and this a whole lot of it. So people can stay tuned for that. That's going to be coming up here in the next few months.
Nice.
What is brumation again? I remember I worked on this funny little project for the children's BBC, which was science, and it was about, one of mine was called "What Would Happen If I Turned Into a Lizard."
Oh.
It's like
sing us the song.
The other one was what would happen if the world was flat. So I was kind of covering lizards and flat Earth at the same time. So I was in sort of conspiracy theory.
That's all deep hole.
Hibernation is, what was that? What's the difference between that and hibernation again?
Hibernation, so it's is going to be sleeping. So when brumation goes, the animal's still awake. They're still able to move, but they don't move as much. So they move very, very little throughout the day. You're not going to see too much of hunting patterns at all, depending on the animal. You're not going to see too much of gathering at all. You're going to see it mostly just relaxation. They're not going to come after you. They're going to be watching, of course, and be defensive if need to be. But they're awake, and they're just like the body, like, goes. It's like a relaxing Sunday day. You just don't want to get up and start moving. That's really what it is. They don't have it, so they're not burning as much calories due to that. They're kind of saving it up to stay warm, or saving it up for future use.
That's like us Brits in the winter, isn't it? And kind of
with the heat, storing our calories.
I'm like literally going to be at my desk with a duvet around me, trying to stay warm.
I'm going to be staring at my screen, not moving my hands at all, not working, just looking.
Oh,
I guess I'll shuffle off to bed.
I should make it clear. I was with you guys a little bit. I grew up in Illinois for 16 years, where we'd get like
Oof.
about 10 inches of snow and negative 20
Really?
degree. And I was a foolish kid who did Boy Scouts and would go camping in negative 20-degree weather in a tent.
No.
So yeah, to learn the survival skills and to adapt to and learn nature and and freeze at the very
I think
least.
over here, most of our survival skills are grumbling about it. That's how we get through
Is that it?
it.
We do that here
no,
too. Don't count
yeah.
us out. If there's one thing Americans are good at, it's grumbling these days. Okay, we know that for a fact. Oh, boy. But so you guys were working on this, and where can they find your guys' book though currently? Because there's some new developments with it because it was a web comic at a certain point, and there's some new things that happening.
Yeah, I mean, it was really interesting when we first started on chapter 1. We were having sort of conversations with James Devlin, the colorist and designer for it all, and Charlie Adlard, who was the artist on chapter 1 and designed all the characters. It was like, how do we do it on Webtoons? Because obviously most people do it with like a singular strip where you scroll up. And actually, because we're quite, I was going to say a bunch of old farts, but basically because we're...
How dare you?
No, I wasn't including.
And everybody hated you ever since. For some unknown reason, just excluded from the project.
No, but like the idea of like being able to print it and being able to have like, you know, sort of a not the sort of scrolling up version. So when we I mean, I'm not sure if it did this much favors on Webtoons not having that scrolling up, but the plan was always it would be really nice for the young people, for the team to have something to hold in their hands, like a, you know. So we after it had finished, we went back to a couple of the funders and said, look, have you got, please sir, can we have some more to do the print edition and pay the designers and stuff. So, and then finding a publisher. I mean, what was interesting, because with the comic, worked with Joe Muggs, who's like a music journalist in the UK, brilliant music journalist, to help us curate people to do playlists for each of the chapters. So each of the chapters has a brilliant musician, DJ, producer who has done an hour-long playlist to go with each chapter. And they're from the UK, South Africa, and India. And what we thought was that we would do interviews, so that the print comic has got interviews from all musicians about what their experience was like during the pandemic.
Oh.
So we went to a music publisher actually called Velocity Press, and the guy there who runs it was just brilliant and said, "Yep, absolutely, we'll publish this for you." And so went for that. Was the sort of music connection link. And yeah, it's available in the UK. We've got a distributor in the UK. But if you can buy it anywhere else in the world, but you have to go through the Velocity Press website, but they will they'll post it anywhere in the world.
Very nice.
So of course it is still free to read on Webtoons. You can access it for free, but if you want to...
Do you like the feel of paper in your hands?
I love the feel of paper in my hands.
Oh, same.
Yeah, it's true.
I just love that. It was so funny. We went away on holiday for the first time in a long time in the summer, and I just couldn't. I was really rubbish at packing. I was like overpacked, but I put so many comics in my suitcase.
Really?
I weighed it, and he's like, "This is just, this is like 3 weight because you filled it with comics." And I sat there with this pile of comics around me, going, "What's going to stay and what's going to go?" And it was really, really, really hard. But what I really enjoyed was sort of just sitting there, reading the paper comic. Yeah.
But they're bad travel companions, because the weight to time spent ratio is not good for a suitcase.
It's true, and then you got to carry it all around once you finish it too. You're like, man, I already finished this. I wish I could go in the library, but instead I got to carry it around for my whole trip now. But
only comics that you hate.
Yeah, any comics I hate.
Just jettison them. If you've got comics that you want to read, but you think, I probably won't hang on to this afterwards. Maybe hate is a bit strong. You've got a comic that you want to read, and you think, I might not hang on to this. I might just pass it on, and you can leave it in a hotel.
That's true. Or, that's true. I mean, people may think I hate certain books, or not hate, as it's a strong word, but like dislike certain books. But I'm one where I only have a certain amount of room in my library, so I have to purge every now and then. So I give them out to people who are my fellow comic book fans that were like fellow officers of mine, and we work with them and I give them books, and they have books for their kids. So I'm like, you know what? Share the wealth of comics. It's not
Yeah.
because you don't like it. It's because some of them I enjoyed and didn't really want to give up. But share the good
Yeah.
stories.
There's levels of preciousness.
Yes,
Let's put it that way. There's some books that I really love, but I can't hang on to because I don't have the space, and they're just not quite as precious as other comics that I have.
Now I got a question for you guys though.
Mm.
It's kind of an odd one. Hardcover or paperback trades for comics?
I mean, well, just to plug my last book.
Uh-oh. Shameless plug.
No. Well, actually, it's not available in the States, so it doesn't really matter. But never mind. But it's a book called Livestock, and I wanted to. It's like a satire on politics and popular culture, and I wanted to look like a magazine. And the publisher that it was for, they really love like a nice sort of hardback coffee table graphic novel, and I had to really push to have it in paper so it looked more like a magazine. And it's I think it was, and also to make it slightly cheaper. So it kind of looks a bit more disposable, I think, but it means that when I carry them to cons, they're a lot lighter. So
there's that.
In that way.
I would agree with that. I mean, because they're cheaper and also they're lighter, I would say paperback.
Yeah.
Carrying loads of stuff in your bag. I am.
And also eco-friendly too. If I think paperbacks are more eco-friendly than hardcover.
I don't know. They must be.
You'd think so, right? I heard somewhere that they're not, and I was like, that doesn't make any sense at all.
Wait, so what was the right answer then? Was it paperback or hardcover?
I was just curious because there's a whole comic book debate going on right now, and I wanted to get some outside opinion, so I was very curious. I had this whole conversation about hardcover versus paperback comic books with one of my other officers. Shout out to you, Andy, at the animal job, and he was just saying like, "Oh wait, no, which one is this, hardcover, paperback?" But yeah, I've been hearing it too from people, so I just kind of want to get some other creatives' opinions on it.
I think if you find like a really fancy, it's going to be quite fancy to have a hardcover. I think you have something that's nice and embossed, and it's got some spot varnish and fancy bits on, fancy twiddly bits. I think that's special.
But then you get to a science book, a book on education or science, and you're just like, it's got to be. You kind of want it to be hardcover.
Yeah,
so it's like
tome to protect the knowledge inside.
Absolutely. I got one recently. I got it shipped over. It took a while to get to. From your guys' neck of the woods, actually, Dr. David Hone put a book out, How Fast the T-Rex Run, is what it's called in the States, and I don't know what it's called here in neck of the woods. They changed the name for the States for some unknown reason. I don't know. Americans were lower education, but the thing about that. So I just got that, and I was like, it's a hardcover. I didn't know if it was going to be paperback, but I was like, you know what, kind of fits it being a hardcover because it's all about paleontology and the future of it. You know what? Yeah, this is pretty good.
Gives it gravitas, doesn't it?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. A little bit. Well, like I said, and I probably the email came to you guys. We'd be doing about 30 minutes or so. I don't want to take too much of your guys' time because for you guys, it's a little bit later in the night. So, where by chance could people find you, Hannah and Sarah, on social media?
I'm very bad at Twitter, but I am a lurker on there. Penny on Twitter. And then I've got my Wowbagger Productions is my company website. But yeah, I'm
cool. Everything went quiet.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Oh yeah, sorry. Are you still
Hannah? Yeah.
Sorry.
Yo, I know I'm still here. No, we're just waiting. We're just doing the polite thing and just letting you go next.
Oh, sorry. I think the connection's gone. So I'm on Twitter and Instagram as at Streak of Pith. STREAKOFPITH because I thought that was funny. And I've got a website, hannahberry.co.uk, which sort of says where I'm going to be if I'm doing any events or anything. If you want to come and see me and say hello. I've got nothing in the States though, nothing coming up. So if anybody wants to invite me to the States and then come visit me, then that would be great. Otherwise just a bit like Sarah, I suppose, just lurking on Twitter.
Fair. I mean, that's the best way to survive on Twitter is to be a lurker.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't really want to do too much interactions because then it's just game over at that point.
Yeah, I know. When you start interacting, then people react, and then thoughts are
Yeah.
had, shots are fired,
Yep,
takes are
absolutely.
taken.
Yep, you got to have it afterwards drink because you're like, man, people are ruthless on Twitter.
Oh.
Whoa.
Everything you say has to be with a disclaimer as well. You have to say if you say I really love my cat, but I also love my tortoise, and I love other animals equally, and I also love that people that don't have animals. I appreciate that too, and it's a personal choice to have an animal, but I do love my cat. But
Yeah, that sounds about right.
gets long.
I post a lot of pictures of my crocodilians I care for, and then sometimes stuff
Oh,
from the animal job, and I get a lot of flack for that. People
really?
message me and stuff.
Come
Oh,
on. Why?
absolutely.
What's
Yeah,
wrong?
it's a lot of things. A lot of people are very judgmental on animals these days, and
Oh
especially
no.
exotic animals here. So it's like, yeah, I got the block button ready to go.
Boy.
Is it somebody once? I got a message once from somebody, and this is a true story. I posted a picture. It was one of the teenager ones actually, and I think it was Morlet, kiddo from Mexico,
Mhm.
and and somebody said to me, like, "Oh, the only good croc is the one that make you pair in the boots." And I'm like, "Well, I'm blocking you. sorry,
Come
sorry.
on.
You obviously have no idea how much they affect an ecosystem. So, boop, no."
Yeah. What a thing to someone who's dedicated their life to looking after these things.
Yeah. Twitter, Twitter ahoy! This is what it is. Oh boy.
Imagine saying
Yeah.
that to someone who's showing pictures of their dogs, or like a house pet.
Yeah.
They're like, I like what you've done there, but I wish your animal was dead and on my feet.
Oh, they do that too. That is a thing. I've seen that as well. I do.
Uh,
One of the jobs is at the ambulance is a crime investigation. So I've had to see some social media posts that people made threats because they did stuff and that whole. I'm like, wow, can we just be happy with them? It's come on,
oh,
it's too much to ask. I'm like, come on, I'll give you a good comic book. Just sit down and enjoy something.
yeah.
Oh, good heavens.
Going any comedy Twitter I kind of like at the moment. There's this really good. I don't know if you've seen Fesshole.
Yes, love it.
I'm not.
Like
What is that?
like anonymous confessions, and that's really funny. And there's I think there's God's one of them that I'm quite enjoying. So God's just being judgy.
Yeah.
Yep.
So like I'm trying to get more comedy feeds on my Twitter so I can just chuckle a bit
How
more.
about Am I the Asshole? I quite like that one. You know that one?
That's a good one. That is a good one.
Yeah.
Oh, see, all you got to do is trick the algorithm. Be like, I want to be happy, algorithm. What's going on here, Twitter?
Well, mine
Gotta
knows that I
trick.
don't. Just give me this slurry of despair.
Oh, well, thank you, ladies, for coming on. This has been an absolute blast having you guys on to talk about everything and actually talk about science. I don't get to talk about it too much here on the podcast, so it's actually kind of nice. a little break.
It's lovely to be here. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Of course. Now, I wish you luck, and I do wish you guys for whatever may come next too in the future for you, because we both know in science and in the arts, you never know what's next.
It's
You
true.
never know. Yeah. And good luck with your crocodile comic.
Sweet, thank you.
Crocodilio? What's the term?
The crocodilians in Desert Winter.
Crocodilians.
But if we do make it into a comic, I will send you guys the emails to it, and I'll send you guys some free copies. So don't worry about that.
Yeah. Yes, please. Thank you.
Yes. Alrighty. Well, thank you guys, and you guys enjoy the rest of your night. Okay.
Thank you. You too. Or your day, I suppose.
Thank you. But day, yeah, it's a long day. Thank you.